Adams County, Mississippi is home to the historic city of Natchez. Long before it became known for its antebellum homes and riverfront charm, this county stood at the center of an economy that generated extraordinary wealth by denying freedom and humanity to others. Its history reminds us that the decisions a society makes about who belongs, who has rights, and who can be confined leave lasting marks for generations. Today, Adams County sits at the center of another national conversation. As immigration enforcement has expanded, particularly following the start of the current presidential administration, private immigration detention has grown rapidly across the Southeast. Corporations have profited from contracts to detain immigrants, while federal policies have increased the demand for detention beds. In Adams County, the privately operated Adams County Correctional Center, managed by Core Civic under the contract with ICE, has become one of the country's largest immigration detention facilities. Behind its walls are people seeking asylum, pursuing legal status, or fighting to remain with their families. Many have spent months, and in some cases years, in detention while waiting for their immigration cases or habeas petitions to move through an overwhelmed court system.
The Adams County Correctional Facility was originally built to be a prison. It has since transitioned into an immigration detention facility within the last decade, and it is based in Natchez, Mississippi. And so this means that as a immigration detention facility, not everyone who is detained in Adams County has a criminal conviction or has served a criminal sentence. This means that folks who are engaged in immigration proceedings, everything from a green card application to asylum proceedings or fear of persecution proceedings, are all in this holding facility during the time that they're awaiting a decision on their status of citizenship or their temporary status to be able to walk through and engage in the United States, and particularly in Mississippi. There are two contracts that are happening. So ICE contracts with Adams County, and then Adams County then contracts with Core Civic, which is a private company that is over the day-to-day operations of the facility. The facility itself was already in existence and it had the space. So when, of course, the raids happened before, there was a need for a space large enough to hold a mass amount of folks at the same time, because originally it was a place where folks would be there temporarily, and now it has transitioned into a place where people are there for long periods of time.
ICE right now, under the Trump administration, has taken policies that immigration enforcement historically has not taken, positions and policies that they've historically not taken, such as refusing to give bond hearings to people. Adams previously had a contract with the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So those are people who were sentenced federally. They actually had a criminal process and they were adjudicated as guilty and sent there. Historically, Adams had a large population of people who were found guilty by the federal courts, but they also were immigrants, so they were going to do their time and then be deported. And Adams historically had really bad conditions, which is why in 2012 there was a major riot at the facility. So people around the country right now are being sent all over. The two clients I represented at Adams so far, one was a transgender woman from New York who was sent there and housed. Adams is all a men's facility, so housed amongst men, even though she identifies as a woman and presents as a woman. And the other client was living, his family was based in Georgia, the state of Georgia, and was moved to Adams and did the majority of his time in the United States in Adams. So it really is however and wherever ICE decides to send you. But again, we also have to think about these are private facilities. So there are contracts between ICE and Core Civic or Geo Group, which runs the Louisiana facilities, most of the Louisiana facilities, where there is some agreement that the federal government and ICE will pay these companies per day to house people. So people get moved around all the time. And there's no, publicly known reason why someone will be moved other than ICE makes that determination.
There are multiple different ways that you can come into contact with ICE or Customs and Border Patrols. The most common way is that you are leaving your foreign country seeking asylum because either you have fear of persecution or there's some other reason, maybe you have fear for your life. Another way that you can come into contact with ICE is simply by flying on a plane to the United States and announcing that you want asylum. And that initiates your immigration proceedings because from that point forward, you are in the custody of ICE. And so your immigration proceedings is like the application process. So you apply for asylum. There's got to be hearings by an immigration court judge to make a determination of whether you qualify for asylum, and that takes time. So ICE has the authority to release you during this period of time or the authority to hold you in detention during this period of time. And this period of time is not necessarily a quick process. Your asylum proceedings can last, anywhere between 3 months to 2 years or longer. And so if you can imagine someone beginning their asylum proceedings and then it's 2 years later, they've been in this holding facility the entire time and they still don't have an answer and they don't know when they're going to get an answer.
It's the last option that anyone who's in custody, who's had their liberty taken away and they're held in jail, prison, ICE detention, whatever, the government's holding them. They file this, but it depends where you're being held. So since ICE is a federal agency, people in ICE detention have to file a federal habeas corpus, and you file that where you are being held in the federal court locally. Because Adams County is in Natchez, Mississippi, that's in the Southern District of Mississippi. There's 2 federal court districts in the state of Mississippi, the Northern District and the Southern District, and the Western Division is Natchez. So that puts everybody at Adams who needs to get out of ICE detention, they have to file a federal habeas corpus to the lone judge for the Western Division of the Southern District of Mississippi. There's only one judge who sits in Natchez, and he's technically on what we call senior status, and he's been on that since 2006. Judge David Bramlett, he's 86 years old. All of the habeas petitions go before him. With this Trump administration's mass detention policy, we've seen tons of people get sent to Adams. We know that between March of 2025 and July 6th was the last time we checked, there were 598 habeas petitions filed challenging the legality of their detention and asking the court to review the legality of their detention for people at Adams County. Very, very few were actually decided. Less than 1% of those 598 cases have been decided on what we say is the merits, which means the court looks at the claims that the person's making and makes a decision. The vast majority of the cases that have been dismissed or there's been a closure of them is because someone gets deported or they get transferred out of the district. So because there's only one judge that gets them, and he's supposed to already have a limited docket, a limited amount of cases that he works on, there's really this kind of bottleneck where all of them are sitting right now before one judge. The case law is very clear about habeas petitions. Again, this is civil detention. People are taken from where they're residing, taken from their families. You're supposed to move in an expedited fashion to determine the legality of their detention. However, the Southern District of Mississippi is becoming an anomaly across the country in terms of having some of the most habeas petitions that have been pending.
The circumstances are different from those that shape Adams County's past, but the questions are strikingly familiar. What happens when confinement becomes part of an economic model? Who bears the human cost of policies carried out behind prison walls? And how should we measure justice for those whose freedom hangs in the balance? This is not a story about history repeating itself. It is a story about history that reminds us to pay attention. In a county whose past still shapes its identity, the experiences of immigrants detained today challenge us to consider what justice, dignity, and humanity should look like in our own time.
If people are able to actually go down to Natchez and try to visit people, there's volunteer groups, there's church groups, there's support groups. That's absolutely needed. Um, Depending on the day of the week, there might be people standing outside Adams who are just released, who have no way of getting back to New York or California, you know? So there's actually been stories about, some Lyft and Uber drivers exploiting that and like charging kind of crazy rates because people are on the side of the road. But people could help out with rides. People can organize themselves and, community groups, church groups, etc. People who know Mississippi attorneys can reach out to their friends who are Mississippi attorneys and say that they should take on more cases for people in Adams, because people, again, being sent from all over the country, they have to file it in Mississippi, which means they need a Mississippi attorney to file it. They might have an immigration attorney elsewhere, but they don't have someone who filed this habeas petition. Um, I also think people can reach out too if they live in, that is Benny Thompson's district. They can reach out to their congressperson and say, we don't want this, facility here. We don't want what's going on here keep on going on.